Welcome to Tech Ties and Human Vibes, where we explore the tech that powers modern businesses and drives innovation. I'm Adam, and with me is Nancy. We'll be talking to entrepreneurs, innovators, and industry experts about the tools they use, the challenges they face, and how technology is shaping the future of work. Let's dive in. How has your endeavors been going with Rechtien Consultant?
It's been interesting. So obviously especially in the beginning, right? The biz dev side of it is always the hardest, and as everyone probably, as you know yourself, as everyone will tell you, the real business at some point comes through connections. So what I found and what is just taking time, which is also obvious, is building these connections and kind of reintroducing myself to older connections to, people just get to know what I'm doing, what has changed. How do you go from selling steel to telling people how to get a grip on their business and then proving in the next step that you can actually walk the talk on what you're saying?
I mean
Um,
you're kind of eating your own cake there, right? I mean, you kind of you preach this, and
yeah,
so yeah, you're living the actual life as well.
yeah, yeah. And I'm
So,
not, to a certain extent, I'm not a fan of the cake. But that's totally fine. That's how it goes. And it's a good thing because I think also there's a lot of people out there who call themselves a coach, who call themselves a wizard at XYZ. I think you guys see the same in the IT space, right? People that say they create you a nice web page and people that say that do whatever they say they do. And then in the end, well, come to find out, it costs a lot of money, but it ain't that pretty or it's not working that well. And we have the same here. So I like it's this two sides of the scale, right? I like the fact that there is a hurdle to getting into this because if it was really easy and everybody could do it, there would be many people selling you snow in Antarctica or something, right? However
Yeah.
you say that, but um, that's I think is a big problem. So you have to you have to make a name for yourself. You have to be reliable. You have to prove the concept. You have to be help first, which is one of our US core values. Um, and you have to have a grow or die mentality, which is another one of the core values. Um, Otherwise, you're not going to go anywhere and you're ultimately going to fail.
you said grow or die mentality, and that's something that for me, I live and die by that as well. What can you give an example of how that has led you to where you are today and telling people how to get a grip on their business?
To an extent, I think it's ingrained. It shows in so many things, right? At some point in my life, I made the decision to get into the steel business, out of the banking business, which was real growth and new learning. And then at some point, my wife and I together decided to move to the United States and out of Germany, which also is growth and learning comes with, a different language that you have to use every day. And you wouldn't believe, now it's funny to look back and think about it, but I was good at talking about steel and business and stuff, but I had no clue what some of the stuff in the supermarket was. And when my wife told me in German, I had a hard time finding some stuff because they needed the English word, which I didn't have, right? So you go through a growth curve. Well, you have to talk to a contractor about, I don't know, the spigot in the backyard. What do I know what that the name for that thing is spigot, right? You just don't. So you grow by, I think, and I'm getting to the point here, you grow by exposing yourself to something that's outside your comfort zone, to something that's kind of probably in the dark for you because you've never been there, you've never thought about it, and here you are in a life situation, a business situation, whatever it is, and you have to really step into the unknown. Um, yeah, and the air kind of smells a little different in that area, and that's again what I've done also with this. It's kind of a well, for one, it's a leap of faith. Some of the stuff I've done started businesses from scratch. I've turned around businesses. And all of it is a little different, but all of this takes a certain amount of time. And my experience is that a turnaround for a company takes about 3 years. So nobody wants it to take 3 years to start their journey and get to the point where they're really happy with the outcome. But it is a journey and it is a process, and you're either in or you're not. Part of it is also that, you know, you got to expose yourself fully to it and be open to all the learning.
I
And
love I love what you said, grow by exposure. Like there and it's so funny you said that because I just had a conversation today with a friend of mine and we were talking about the town that I grew up in up in Ohio. It's a small town. It's like an interstate town. But what's interesting is a lot of people from that town never leave like within a 50-mile radius of that town, and they've never been outside of the state of Ohio. And so it literally, I mean, Ohio's not that big, right? It literally blows my mind, and I have trouble understanding that. And there's a term that we often use up there. The name of the town is called Zanesville, and when you go to a restaurant, you call it. You ask people who've never been there, right? They'll go to a restaurant and they'll say, "How good was it?" And you say, "Was Zanesville good?" You know, Zanesville good is not the same as good in the rest of the United States.
yeah,
But those people have never. They don't have a bar set because
yeah,
they don't have any experience with the rest of the world. So there's no bar set. It's like their bar, I guess it's set, but it's very low because they're only competing with their neighbor, not somebody in another country or somebody in another state. So yeah, I
mhm.
love grow by exposure because that was so similar to what she was saying to me today. She was like, they're just not exposed to outside community.
No, and then to your point of setting the bar, right? Some people don't want to be exposed, and that's fine. And that's also what I see, and you guys have been through this too. What I see with prospects I talk to, or people that, you know, I think might be good prospects and they aren't. They just don't care, and that's fine. I am not for everyone. The US is not for everyone, and not everyone is for me. So this big distinction, I don't remember if we talked about this last time. Big distinction I've made for myself is there's this concept of be, do, have, right? Usually we want to have something, then we figure out what we have to do to get it, and then we behave the way we think we have to behave to do the stuff we need to do to get it. And that's totally upside down. So, in my mind, the right thing in my mind is to be who you are from the bottom of your heart, and you will attract the stuff that's good for you, and you will naturally repel the stuff that's not. And that leads you to do certain things because you are a certain way. You are who you are at your core. That leads you to do certain things, and that gets you all you want and then some. And that's where, for some people, it's that level of desperation, and others, just like I said, they just don't want it. They don't see a need. They don't see a need to get a passport. How many people don't have a passport because for them it's just waste of money because they'll never leave the country.
Yeah.
For crying out loud, like you said, they'll never leave the county they were born in, let alone the country, right? So, and that's okay. For some people, that's all they need, and that's okay. But that's about the bar. So their bar is by definition, obviously a little lower.
Yeah.
Um, and I try to keep mine high. That's why I went back to college a couple of years ago and got a bachelor in German law. Well, I live in the US. I probably never need it, but I had to read a lot of contracts in English and in German, and I had to deal with a lot of people internationally that base their contracts on different laws, and it was just interesting to me. And it's another way of growing exposure, growing your brain capacity, if you will, growing your knowledge base, and meeting interesting people.
So when you
So,
reach that bar, I get so like if you reach that bar, do you push it up a little bit further?
oh yeah, absolutely. I hope my wife never listens to this stuff because she probably won't like it.
That
But
was
that's exactly
my
what happened.
that was my next question. Being an entrepreneur and being an ambitious person from the very beginning, something I've heard quite often all of my life has been, why do you want more? Why do
Yeah.
you why do you push for more? Why do you want more? Where does that come from? And I've learned over time that my threshold of more is just completely different than somebody else's more or definition of more. Um, but what is something that you would say to someone, and or yourself as you experience that when you're faced with that constantly being questioned as to why more, and is that important? Is that valuable? Does that make you different? How do you answer that?
So yes, I do think it makes me different, and that's not in a way that I think I'm better or whatever than anyone else. I'm just different because I am who I am. All three of us are different people, right? We're all nice people, but we're all different from each other, and it's good that way. Um, I do believe that I'm particularly driven, and other people have that as well. Um, and some people don't have it, and that's fine. And when I get asked the question of, well, why do you want more? I think there is so much more to explain. And a friend of mine, who's also another implementer that I went to the training with, um, he is all about purpose. And we had a lot of discussions around this topic. What do you want more? Where does it end? And I believe that um, that's a very interesting concept to me of plateaus. So I don't look at, well, at some point I asked myself, obviously, the question like, what's enough? When does this ever stop? Right. And I honestly found the answer for me that are probably never going to stop. So I have to deal with who I am at my core, and I just have to live with myself. There's no other way, obviously. But kind of reaching these plateaus. So like you said before, you reach that, call it the bar, right? You get to that bar. What do? I get this picture of sitting on this landing, um, in the woods, surrounded. I have a real nice view, and here I am in this cozy, relaxing chair with a non-alcoholic beer or cocktail, enjoying the view for a minute. And then I explore, okay, where am I? What got me here? What are the things I really love to do? Who are the people I like to surround myself with? And then at some point, like I need to do something else, right? I can only go on vacation for so long without getting antsy and doing something. And that's the same thing. So that's where the bar starts to shake a little bit, right? It wants me
Yeah.
to lift it up to the next level, and then it goes up again. And I truly believe that that's very much in sync with what we see in small businesses. And that's, again, what we do with EOS, because when we come in, we talk to people, that we talk about the 6 key components. And the real goal is to get the business to 80% or better in these 6 key components. So 100% is a scientific number, right? If you were 100% perfect in all of them, it's just not achievable. But 80% very well is. So now, well, you own a business, you know yourself, you get to those 80%. What's that, the end of the journey? And that's it? No. You just recalibrate, because your 100%, as you get to 80, your 100% is different from what it was 2 years ago when you first looked at it. So you recalibrate and you say, okay, my 100 is this now, so my 80 is this. That's why you set a new 3-year, like you have the 10-year target, and then you have a 3-year picture and a 1-year plan. That's why you change your 3-year picture to the next 3 years. And then at some point you move out your long range target, because you need something else to go after, because if everything goes according to plan, you've
Yeah.
reached that target, but you keep moving along.
Very true. I think that's, people have different capacities too. And so
Yeah.
and life changes, and things will be thrown your way that often change that plan. So then the next thing is, how do you adjust and you reevaluate, recalibrate, as you were saying, as to what that new target is, especially when you
Yeah.
continue to want more.
Right. And the other thing is, and that's I want to be very clear on that. It's not only money,
Right,
right? Money gets you
exactly.
a lot of
Right,
stuff, and
right.
money is one of these points. But it's, I've run a company that had, I don't know, we had 10 people working there, and it was almost bankrupt. And within 2 years, we brought it to 25 people, and then hiring more, and it made good money. For me, the money is just the one side of that. That's the sign to the, well, for one, everybody gets paid, and it's a sign to the outside that you're doing something right and that things are going well. But doubling the amount of people that have a job with a take-home pay that allows them to take care of their families, which then again is probably a spouse, an average 2 kids, right? So the number of souls you touch as an entrepreneur by making this happen, because nobody else has the guts and the will to do it, I think that's amazing. There's so much more to it than just a dollar amount in an account or whatever it is.
Right, that's the impact that we make, and usually that's tied to, especially for entrepreneurs, it's tied to the more that you want to do. At least for me, when I think of more, it's not money. I've never had it. I grew up with a single mom and very poor. So for me, money has never been significant in um, my day-to-day life or why I make certain choices. Obviously, I need to live and I need to feed my child. But if I could do what I do for free, I would, just
Yeah,
because I enjoy it, and what I want to get out of that is the impact that I can have in the world, the impact that I can have on others, the souls being touched. As you said, I love the way that you put that, because it really is a domino effect, or it can be a domino effect,
Yeah.
as to how you affect people and how you affect change.
yeah.
Um, so that's awesome.
I love that. That's so cool. This one point, and I want to point that out again, Nancy, is that that's a question I have been asked a couple times from very wise people, and I ask other people that as well. And I started talking to my kids about that a little bit as well. The question is, if money was not an issue, would you still do what you're doing? And if the answer is not yes, then you have to change something. To your
Mm.
point, like
Yeah.
if I didn't need any money, I would do it for free. That's exactly, I think that's the only way to do it. Not everybody looks at it that way, but at least we do. So we have a bunch of stuff to talk about here.
That's funny. That's funny. I've had that conversation with my 21-year-old, and he asked me that question the other day, and I said, I don't know that I would change anything that I'm doing right now. I said, I
Yeah,
enjoy it. Like, it's fun for me.
yeah.
Whether or not I'm good at it's a whole other story, but I tell you what, I enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think that's the main thing, right? How many people go to work somewhere for a paycheck, they live paycheck to check, and then they complain
Yeah.
all day, every day because they're not having fun, they're not enjoying what they're doing. I think a big part of it is that it's probably not rewarding for them, and that's because at some point they decided that, I don't know, that's for them, and they were never willing to start a company. Um, yeah, it's just okay. That's fine. If you don't want to be a business owner, you don't want to be an entrepreneur, that's cool. But find something you love to do.
Yeah. Well, I think some people, I think there's a mix. I mean, I know some people that might feel as if they don't deserve it, and so they don't go for it. They don't make that change, whether it's finding another job that they enjoy or starting a business that they've always wanted to start. I feel like they feel like they don't deserve success in life,
Yeah,
and I think that's sad. That's a sad trap to be caught in.
it is, and that's where I would say get a coach. That's probably a good investment. That's some of the things that you have to. Well, everybody has, nobody has to do anything, but that's some of the things I would recommend people start working on
So
because,
what would your suggestion be? Let's say you had somebody like that felt like they didn't deserve it. How do you get them out of that?
well, the base and we're kind of bouncing to co-active coaching now. The base, how we call it, is that everybody is naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. So you are perfect the way you are. You have everything you need to go through life and be a happy person. Everybody deserves to be happy. Everybody deserves to get from life whatever they want to get from it. But it's not just going to come to you. You got to go get it. You have to go create stuff. And that's where with create, I don't mean that everybody has to start a business, but you have to go it starts with creating connections in the first place. Go somewhere and talk to somebody about something. If you want to know something that you don't know, you have to ask.
Well, one of the things
So
that
it's
you
about,
said, um, and Adam, when we first started this thread, it was I enjoy what I do, but I may not be good at it. And my immediate thought was, well, we're never good at it. We don't start
That's
off
true.
being good at
Yeah.
it. We didn't start off walking and running. We started by learning movement first. The
Yeah.
first step was movement and being in awareness, right? Not even anywhere close to running. Um, so I think of it in a very similar way, right, Thomas? Like, does that also help the aspect of deserving? Is you have to get through the mindset of I'm not even good at it, so why should I?
yeah,
Let me jump in there first, and then you can dive in my brain, because literally I can go to bed every night and say, "What could I have done better today?" Like, I don't feel like I was successful enough today. I could go to bed every night feeling that way.
okay. What do you do with that thought?
I go to sleep ultimately, but that's it.
Well, and then how do you find out if you get better or not?
I wake up the next morning and just try harder.
Okay, and then how do you know you tried? Well, you tried harder because you tried hard, but how do you
Yeah.
know that anything changed?
I guess I don't know. I don't know
Okay,
how to measure
wait a
that.
second. You get yourself just a book that you can write in, empty pages, and you start to journal.
Okay.
That's one of the things. So keep a gratitude journal. Write down, you go to bed at night and you're not satisfied with what you did. Write down a couple achievements, 2 or 3 you had that day. That might be very little things. I made 3 proactive calls. I spent my dinner time with my son, not looking at my phone once. I went on a walk after dinner for a half hour with my spouse and we had a nice conversation. Whatever these wins are for you, that like important things that you would usually just, wipe away and not even think about, as you get into these thoughts, spend 15 minutes or so every night and sit down and write down what you're grateful for. And then as you get more comfortable with that, well, add a little section to your journal every day and write down 3 things you were successful in
I like
that
that.
day.
I have a little book, and it's full of empty pages, so I
Yeah.
can I can do that.
So then the cool thing, once a month or so, just look back, go through and look at the early stages of your journal, like the same thing, right? Practice makes a master. It's probably not going to be perfect when you look back in a year at your first journal entries, but it's a starting point. And then you
Yeah.
get better, you get more granular. Your thought patterns change because now you're spending time with it and you start measuring things, right? What gets measured gets done. So you start measuring your old thoughts versus your new thoughts. So you see how patterns change, how you appreciate yourself more, how you appreciate the world around you more, how you appreciate your coworkers more, how you appreciate your family more, how you value your time more. And all these types of things that are just benefits that come with over time with just journaling and being able to track some of the thought patterns you have. Put in a little thingy about how you feel. I'm feeling anxious tonight. I had a bad day. I got in a big fight with Nancy over work. And the next day I'm so happy because she called me and apologized and we're best friends again. And so look at these things and track a little bit just what's going on with me.
That's good. That's good advice. I appreciate that. And let me just say that I don't think anybody has ever been in a fight with Nancy.
No, I don't think so either. That's why I picked that example because it's so unlikely to happen.
I just cannot imagine it. I just can't.
Yeah.
That is
Just for the
not
purpose
true.
for the purpose of the exercise, we'll assume. But
We'll
that's the
assume
thing.
there's
So
somebody out there that just
somebody
so
can
happened got in a fight with
totally
Nancy.
get her worked
Yeah.
up. Yeah. I haven't met
Oh,
that person yet, but it could certainly happen.
I can
But so that
introduce you
and
to
that's
a few.
where
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what I would say when you get stuck in these thought patterns. And another thing that I always come back to is just um for me, well, for one, it's live a healthy life. kind of get in shape and stay in shape, get 8 hours of sleep, drink enough water. Like it's like in football, blocking and tackling, in business, your accountability chart, your basic setup that gets you over the next 3 months, your meeting cadence, start your meetings on time, end your meetings on time, how you solve your issues on a day-to-day basis so they go away forever. It's all, you look at sports, you look at business, you look at whatever. There's a couple of basics, and I think for life, it's a healthy lifestyle that is enough sleep. So physical health, right? Enough sleep, eat well, work out. Mental health, there's a component of meditation, journaling, these types of things that keep you mentally in the right space or get you in the right space if you're not there. And then that's a base where you can start taking some action and think, okay, I'm not happy with my performance today because let me look at my journal. Oh, that's what I noted down, and oh, that's how that came about over the last week or so. So what is one thing I can do come tomorrow to change the course? And then you start going and apply these things.
What do you have a template, or what does an accountability chart look like for an entrepreneur?
So the accountability chart, we say that for every, and yes, there is a template. It's obviously also in the book Traction by Gino Wickman. It's all explained and laid out, or you could call me or any other implementer and get more info. You can also look it up on the EOS website. It's common knowledge. So we say that there's 3 basic functions in every company, which is marketing, sales is the one. Operations is the second one, right? Marketing, sales is how you talk about a product, you sell it. Operations is how you get that product, how you make the product, how you get it to the customer, or how you provide your service. And then you have a finance function. How do you deal with in and outflowing money streams? How do you handle assets? These types of things. And then there's 2 more functions we call the visionary and integrator. Visionary is the big picture person, always flying 30,000 feet, wakes up every morning with 20 new ideas and drives the whole company nuts. That's why you need an integrator. That's the person who holds everything together, the glue of everything, person that will get the rubber on the road, keep things going, and keep everybody on track, and kind of filters down all these ideas to actionable things you can do to grow the business. And that's the basic assumption. And some people say, "Ooh, EOS is so stiff," and I'm always saying, "No, it's not, because that's just the basis. That's the theory." Now we go into a company as an implementer, and the first day, the focus day, we'll talk about, okay, what accountability chart version, like what does it have to look like for your unique company and situation to get you over the next 6 to 12 months, and then we'll start individualizing it. So for some, ops splits up in a couple different functions. For others, HR is a part of finance or is a separate function on the leadership team level, and we'll just figure it out as we go. The other thing we do is we put 5 roles into each function. So it's obviously talking about this as structure first, people second, right? First, you need to put the structure in place. Total disregard of any person, what they like to do or don't like to do, because people come and go. They don't guarantee the success of your business venture. The accountability chart, so the structure you give the business, does. That's what's most important. And then we define the 5 roles for every seat on the chart and say, okay, these are the 5 things you have to do in this seat to get done what you need to get done for the business. And once that's all clear, you start to look, okay, who is the right person for the job? And then that's determined by your core values, like who is a great fit for our culture. And then the other determination is, do they get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it? So do they understand what they have to do? Do they want to do it? And do they have the God-given talent it takes to do this job great every day? And then you put people in. And then you have the setup you need and you can go rock and roll. Now that's very simplified, broken down in 2 minutes. I know it's not that easy in reality, but that's the basics of it.
I love that, and it's a framework that makes sense, and I feel that as an entrepreneur that started a business, ran it without EOS, and then had a business and ran it with EOS, I can tell you that if you don't do it in that way, in that method, you run into problems, especially when it comes to your personnel. Having people in the wrong seats, right? That either don't get it or don't want it or don't have the capacity for it. And for me, when I owned my first company, I realized that because I realized that one of my technicians wasn't a problem solver.
Mhm.
And that's something that, caused so many problems
That's kind of something you
because
need to be when you're a technician, isn't it?
yes, you definitely need to be a problem solver. And so what ended up happening with that person, it took so much longer my company was an IT company for those that don't know it. And so it took that person 10 times longer to fix a problem than it would any of my other technicians, which now meant that um, our ticket log was behind, our customer service went down. So there was so many different problems because this person didn't have the capacity to be in that role.
Mhm.
Um, and so I was able to identify it at some point in time after, God knows how long we were all suffering for, clients and employees and owners included. But then putting them in a role where they didn't necessarily have to problem solve. If anything, it was taking in information and then relaying information in the best way possible for someone else to solve the problem. That then kind of streamlined and fixed a lot of these issues. But because I didn't start off with that in the right way, it caused so many headaches along the way.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until, I asked those questions of, is this person in the right seat? Do they get it, want it, and are capable of it? Then did it like not click? And now it's
Mhm.
like, oh man, save yourself some time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, um, Thomas, we're coming up on time here, but I was hoping maybe you could leave us with maybe some words of encouragement.
Words of encouragement. What do you want encouragement in, Adam? I'm happy to give you some encouragement.
For entrepreneurs, words of encouragement for entrepreneurs in general.
Well, in general, I'd say to every entrepreneur, there's hope. Um, the one thing I had a nice chat with someone yesterday, and they asked me how I got like why am I doing what I'm doing, right? Like I'm also an executive coach. I work in the steel industry. I could do a million different things, and I choose to help owners of small businesses. What is that about? So the whole story starts obviously with my grandpa, who was a carpenter in Germany. And when he retired, he was 65. He probably had, I don't know, 30,000 Deutschmarks in the bank. Had worked real hard his whole life. And then he died from cancer 2 years later, which is even more sad. But the whole thing is he worked so hard for what also at the time was, well, more money, kind of, but not enough to get him through his whole retirement, right? And my grandma. And he just never had any tools or help at his disposal. He was just a carpenter and he was great at it. He didn't go to college. He just did what he did with his hands all day, every day, worked Saturdays, Sundays, barely took a week vacation every year to go hike, which he loved to do. Um, and that never changed for him. And I think that's the saddest thing entrepreneurs can do because there's so much more to life. Uh, well, their relationship with their spouse, at some point, kids, further along, grandkids, and there's so many things in life to enjoy um, other than the struggle with running your business. And nobody ever tells you how to run a business, right? That's what I found. I have a bachelor's in business. I have a bachelor's in law. There's people with a master's out there. They can tell you the same thing. You learn a lot about businesses when you go to college. You learn a lot about HR, about finance, about law, about how to write a contract, make it all bulletproof, and all that stuff. But nobody ever teaches anyone how to actually run a business. Not even, funny enough, in entrepreneurial classes, right? You get all this big picture knowledge, but nobody comes to you and tells you how to run a business, how to find out if somebody is the right fit for you as far as a person goes, if they're in the right seat, and if they have the capacity to do what they should be doing, how to run a meeting so it starts on time, ends on time, and you actually get something out of it, and you just don't just discuss the heck out of your problems without having any solution for them. And that's what EOS does. And that's what I love most about it. So it's a simple way to get your business on track, to run a better business, and with that also definitely live a better life. In most cases, if you do it right, the life of your dreams.
So there is hope.
And there's the
That sounds
encouragement.
great.
So there is hope. There is hope, and we're not alone. That's what I got out of
No,
that.
that's the other thing. There are so many people out there that are desperate. And I've been there too. I've been at the point where I was afraid not being able to make payroll. I've been at the point where I thought we gotta declare bankruptcy here. I've been at the point where I thought we need to let half the people go because we're just not making enough money. There's not enough cash. The 6 months cash forecast was so bleak. I didn't even want to wake up the next morning and come to work. Right? And it's all, well, in most cases, I want to say. There's obviously no guarantees, and there's still work to be put in, and you got to be very consistent in how you run your business. But if you're up for the challenge and you're willing to take help, you are more scared of the status quo than you are of changing stuff, there's hope.